In the suffocating shadows of an abandoned trailer, a French Bulldog clings to life, his collar cutting deeper with every breath. Months of silence shatter when animal control storms in, uncovering a mystery that defies belief. At the overcrowded Ventura County Animal Shelter, his fate hangs by a thread until one stranger's gaze pierces his fear. What unfolds next will grip your heart and redefine the unbreakable bond between human and hound. In the blistering heat of August 2024, the Ventura County Animal Shelter in Southern California stood as a crumbling bastion against an unrelenting tide of despair. The squat cinder-block building, nestled between a dusty highway and a sprawling industrial park, was designed to hold 80 animals comfortably. Now it strained under the weight of nearly 200, dogs barking in overlapping cacophony, cats yowling from stacked cages, and staff darting between kennels with the frantic energy of soldiers in a losing battle. The air reeked of disinfectant and desperation, a sharp tang that clung to the back of the throat. It was the tail end of a brutal summer, and the nationwide surge in pet surrenders, leftovers from the pandemic pet boom, had pushed the shelter far beyond its breaking point. Director Sofia Alvarez, a wiry woman with salt and pepper hair pulled into a tight bun, stood in the cramped office, her desk buried under intake forms and vet reports. 18 years in animal welfare had etched deep lines into her face, but her dark eyes still burned with a stubborn resolve. She rubbed her temples, staring at the week's euthanasia list pinned to a corkboard. 18 dogs slated to die by Friday, their names scrawled in red ink like a grim roll call. "We're drowning," she muttered, her voice hoarse from shouting. Over the din, the office door swung open, admitting Animal Control Officer Diego Morales, a broad-shouldered man in his late 30s whose uniform was streaked with dust and sweat. He hauled a battered plastic crate, its sides scratched and stained, and set it down with a gentleness that belied his rough exterior. "No room, no resources," Sophia said preemptively, waving a hand at the chaos beyond the window. Kennels, packed 2 or 3 dogs deep, volunteers weaving through with water bowls. Diego wiped his brow with the back of his hand, leaving a smear of grime. "You'll want to see this one, Sophia. Found him in an abandoned trailer off Highway 101, out past Oxnard. Owner's been gone for months, from what I could piece together." Sophia's gaze flicked to the crate, curiosity cutting through her exhaustion. "Another surrender?" she asked. Diego shook his head. "Not quite. More like a ghost left behind." Inside the crate crouched a skeletal French Bulldog, barely 2 years old by Diego's estimate. His brindle coat, once a rich tapestry of brown and black, was dulled to a patchy grey streaked with what looked like ash, earning him the temporary name Cinder from the officer's quick assessment. The dog's ribs jutted sharply beneath his skin, each breath a shallow shudder that barely lifted his sunken chest. He'd survived somehow on stagnant puddles, pooling in the trailer's cracked foundation, and whatever scraps he could scavenge from the trash-strewn lot, a toppled bag of rotting fast food, a gnawed chicken bone, the dregs of a spilled soda can. His collar, a cheap nylon strap faded to a sickly green, had fused into his neck, cutting deep as he'd grown, a grotesque testament to his abandonment. The metal buckle, rusted and bent, dangled uselessly, a silent accusation against the human who'd tied him to a rusted porch post and walked away. Diego crouched beside the crate, his voice softening. "Neighbors said the guy lost his job last winter, got evicted in spring. Packed up his truck and vanished. Didn't bother taking this little guy with him." Sophia knelt, peering through the crate's bars. Cinder's eyes, wide and glassy, stared past her, unseeing, as if fixed on some distant horror she couldn't fathom. His body trembled faintly, a reflex more than a reaction, and his bat-like ears twitched at the shelter's relentless noise. Barks, clangs, the squeak of a mop bucket rolling past. "He's a mess," she said, her voice tight with a mix of pity and frustration. She'd seen hundreds of cases like this over the years, dogs discarded like broken toys. But something about Cinder's hollow gaze snagged at her, a quiet plea buried beneath his silence. "Get him to Annika," she told Diego, standing and brushing off her jeans. I want a full workup before we decide anything. Veterinarian Dr. Anika Patel arrived within the hour, her crisp white coat a stark contrast to the shelter's grime. A petite woman with sharp features and a no-nonsense demeanor, she carried a clipboard already thick with notes from the day's endless stream of patients. She set it aside as Diego lifted Cinder from the crate, placing him on the stainless steel exam table with the care one might reserve for a fragile artifact. The dog didn't resist, didn't even flinch, just lay there, limp and vacant, as Anika's gloved hands moved over him. Severe malnutrition, she dictated to her assistant, a young vet tech scribbling furiously. Body score of 2 out of 9. Muscle wasting, prominent skeletal structure. Dehydration's advanced, skin's tenting, mucous membranes dry. Open sores on his paws, likely from pacing on concrete, and both ears are crusted with mites. She paused, lifting the collar gently with forceps to reveal the raw, oozing wound beneath. This needs surgery now, embedded deep, infected. We'll start IV fluids and antibiotics. Get him stable enough to cut it out. Sophia lingered by the exam room door, arms crossed, watching as Anika worked. The vet's efficiency was a comfort, a small island of order in the shelter's chaos, but Sophia knew the physical fixes were only half the battle. "What's your read on him?" she asked, as Anika adjusted the IV line dripping into Cinder's foreleg. The vet straightened, peeling off her gloves with a snap. "Physically, we can stabilize him. Fluids, nutrition, surgery for the collar, he'll pull through if we move fast. But mentally..." She glanced at Cinder, who hadn't moved, his head resting on the table as if too heavy to lift. He's gone somewhere we might not reach. No fight, no spark, just nothing. Sophia nodded, her jaw tightening. She'd seen that look before. Dogs so broken by neglect or abuse they simply shut down, their spirits retreating to some unreachable corner. Diego, still hovering nearby, filled in the gaps of Cinder's story, or what little he'd gleaned. Trailer was a wreck, windows smashed, roof half-caved. No sign of food or water inside, just a chewed-up leash tied to that post. He must have slipped it eventually, or it rotted through. Neighbors didn't even know he was there until one of them heard him whining last week. Sophia's mind churned, piecing together the timeline, months alone tethered in the sun and rain, scavenging to survive. "No microchip?" she asked. Diego shook his head. "Nothing. No tags, no history. Just a ghost, like I said." Anika finished her exam, stepping back as the tech prepped Cinder for surgery. "We'll call him Cinder for now," she said, echoing Diego's earlier thought. "Fits him." As the surgical team took over, Sophia returned to the kennel block, her boots echoing on the concrete floor. The noise was deafening, dogs lunging at their gates, cats clawing at cage bars, a volunteer shouting over the racket to coordinate. Feeding. She stopped at an empty kennel, one of the few not yet triple-stacked, and pictured Cinder there, a small broken figure against the cold steel. Another rescue, another mouth to feed, and no space to spare. "We'll do what we can," she told Anika when the vet emerged later, Cinder sedated and bandaged post-surgery, but her voice carried the weight of doubt. His body might heal. Stitches would close the wounds. Food would fill the hollows. But his spirit, that was a wound no scalpel could touch, a darkness that might never lift. The Ventura County Animal Shelter hummed with a restless energy in the days following Cinder's rescue. But for the little French Bulldog, the world remained a silent, suffocating void. Post-surgery, he was assigned a kennel in the rehab wing, a narrow 6-by-4-foot space with a chipped concrete floor, a thin blanket, and a steel water bowl bolted to the wall. The collar wound on his neck was stitched and wrapped in white gauze, a stark contrast to his dulled brindle coat, and the IV fluids had begun to plump his shriveled frame. Yet despite the physical improvements, Cinder's spirit showed no sign of stirring. He pressed himself into the kennel's furthest corner, his squat body curled into a tight ball, as if trying to disappear into the cinder block wall. His dark eyes, rimmed with crust from untreated infections, stared blankly at the floor, avoiding the bustle beyond the bars. The shelter's cacophony, barking dogs, clattering food carts, the sharp voices of staff, washed over him, but he didn't flinch. He was there, yet not there, a ghost haunting his own body. Sofia Alvarez checked on him daily, her boots pausing outside his kennel as she juggled a dozen other crises. She'd seen traumatized dogs before, pit bulls from fighting rings, labs, abandoned after hunting seasons, but Cinder's withdrawal was different. Most rescues, even the battered ones, sought something, a hand to lick, a scrap of food, a sliver of comfort. Cinder wanted nothing. When she slid a bowl of kibble through the kennel door, he ignored it, his nose not even twitching. Only late at night, when the shelter fell into an uneasy quiet, did security cameras catch him creeping forward to eat, his movements jerky and furtive, as if he feared the food might betray him. "He's not fighting," Sofia told Dr. Annika. Patel during a hurried morning rounds. Annika, adjusting her stethoscope, nodded grimly. "Physically, he's stabilizing. Wounds healing, weights up a pound. But he's locked himself away. I've seen it in extreme neglect cases. He's surviving, not living." Behavioral specialist Tara Kim was called in next, a soft-spoken woman with a master's in animal psychology and a knack for coaxing trust. From the toughest cases, she approached Cinder's kennel on his third day, armed with a pouch of high-value treats, bits of freeze-dried liver, and a notebook to log his responses. Kneeling a safe distance away, she spoke in a low, soothing tone. "Hey, little man, I'm not here to hurt you." Cinder didn't move, his body tensed, his stubby legs trembling, and he pressed harder into the corner, flattening himself against the wall until his ribs strained against his skin. Tara tossed a treat gently toward him. It landed inches from his paws, but he didn't glance at it. She tried again the next day, this time with a toy, a soft rubber ball, but he stayed frozen, his breathing shallow and rapid. After a week of daily attempts, Tara sat back on her heels, scribbling in her notebook. Extreme fear response, no engagement, possible psychological shutdown. "It's like he's not even in there," she told Sofia later, frustration creasing her brow. "He's not aggressive, not curious, just gone." Potential adopters streamed through the shelter daily, a mix of families, retirees, and young couples, drawn by the adoption wing's playful puppies and wagging tails. The rehab wing, though, was off-limits to most, its residents too fragile for public view. Still, a few ventured past the staff-only sign, guided by volunteers hoping to offload a hard-luck case. Cinder's kennel drew fleeting glances, his small huddled form barely registering against the flashier dogs nearby. "What's with that one?" a woman asked once, peering through the bars. Volunteer Mia Lopez, a college student with a bright smile, hesitated. "He's a rescue still, adjusting. Needs a special home." The woman frowned, already turning away. "Too much work," she muttered, moving on to a bouncy terrier mix. Day after day, Cinder was passed over, his silence a barrier no one cared to breach. Mia tried leaving a radio playing soft music near his kennel one night, hoping the sound might coax him out. The next morning, the blanket was untouched, the corner still his fortress. By mid-August, Cinder had been at the shelter for 2 weeks, and the strain was showing on everyone. The euthanasia list grew longer, the kennels more crowded, and Sofia's patience thinner. She called a staff meeting in the break room, a cramped space with a wobbly table, a coffee machine spitting bitter brew, and a whiteboard scrawled with feeding schedules. The team gathered. Diego slouched in a chair, Annika leaned against the wall, Tara clutched her notebook, and a handful of volunteers hovered near the door. "We're out of options with Cinder," Sofia said, her voice flat but firm. "He's eating enough to stay alive, but he won't let anyone near him. No rescue groups stepped up. Most are full, same as us. If we can't turn him around, by Friday we may have to make the call." The room fell silent, the weight of her words settling like dust. Diego shifted uncomfortably. "He's not taking up much space," he ventured. Sofia shot him a look. "It's not about space. It's about quality of life. We can't keep him in limbo forever." Tara raised a hand, her voice tentative but determined. "Let me try one more thing. I've got an idea, something different. If it doesn't work, I'll back off." Sofia sighed, rubbing her neck where tension had knotted the muscles. "What's the plan?" Tara hesitated, then explained. I've been approaching him directly, maybe that's too much. I'll sit outside his kennel tomorrow, no pressure. Just read aloud for an hour. See if he responds to a passive presence. Annika arched an eyebrow. You think a bedtime story's going to fix him? Tara shrugged. It's not about fixing him. It's about showing him he's not alone without pushing him. One last shot. Sophia studied her for a moment, then nodded. Fine. Thursday's your day. If nothing changes, we list him Friday morning. That night, Sophia lingered by Cinder's kennel after hours. The shelter's lights dimmed to a faint glow. The other dogs had settled, their barks fading into snores, but Cinder remained awake, his eyes glinting in the shadows. She slid a treat through the bars, chicken this time, a rare luxury from her own lunch. He didn't move. Come on, pequeño, she whispered, more to herself than to him. Give us something to work with. The treat sat untouched as she walked away, her footsteps echoing in the empty hall. She didn't know it then, but Thursday would bring a shift no one expected, a crack in Cinder's armor that would test everything they thought they knew about his limits. By Thursday, August 22, 2024, the Ventura County Animal Shelter buzzed with the frenetic rhythm of a place stretched beyond its limits. The air was thick with the scent of wet fur and antiseptic, the morning feeding rush amplifying the chorus of barks and whines that ricocheted off the cinderblock walls. Cinder, the French Bulldog rescued from an abandoned trailer, remained a silent anomaly in the rehab wing. His kennel, tucked at the end of a dimly lit corridor, was a fortress of solitude, his small, brindle body pressed into the corner, his gauze-wrapped neck a faint white blur against the grey concrete. 2 weeks had passed since his arrival, and despite incremental physical gains, a pound of weight, a cleaner coat, he showed no sign of emerging from his shell. The deadline loomed. If no progress was made by Friday, Sofia Alvarez had made it clear his name would join the euthanasia list. The staff felt the ticking clock, a grim metronome underscoring their every move. Behavioral specialist Tara Kim arrived early that morning, her backpack slung over one shoulder, a paperback novel tucked under her arm. She'd spent the night, restless, replaying her failed attempts to reach Cinder. Treats ignored, toys untouched, her gentle voice met with trembling silence. The meeting's ultimatum had lit a fire under her, a stubborn refusal to let this dog slip away without one. Final push. She found Sophia in the break room, nursing a mug of stale coffee, her eyes shadowed from another sleepless night. You sure about this reading thing? Sophia asked, skepticism lacing her tone. Tara nodded, adjusting her glasses. Direct. Approaches aren't working. He's too scared. I'll just sit there, no pressure. Let him adjust to me being near without forcing anything. Sophia set her mug down with a clink. You've got till end of day. If he's still a statue, we're out of moves. Tara swallowed hard, the weight of the deadline settling on her shoulders, but she forced a small smile. I'll make it. Count? She chose a spot outside Cinder's kennel, far enough to avoid crowding him, about 6 feet away, her back against the opposite wall of the corridor. The rehab wing was quieter than the adoption area, its occupants too sick or skittish for the public eye, but footsteps and distant voices still echoed through. Tara settled cross-legged on the cold floor, opened her book, a worn copy of Charlotte's Web, and began reading aloud. Her voice was soft, measured, a steady stream of words meant to blend into the background rather than demand attention. Some pig, she read, her tone warm but neutral, scribbled in big letters on the web, above Wilbur's pen. She didn't look at Cinder, didn't angle her body toward him, just let the story unfold, her eyes tracing the familiar lines. The shelter's noise faded into a dull hum as she lost herself in the rhythm of it, the tale of a pig and a spider, weaving a fragile thread of hope. For the first half hour, Cinder didn't move. His compact frame stayed wedged in the corner, his bat-like ears twitching faintly at the sound of her voice, but giving no other sign he'd registered her presence. Tara kept reading, turning pages with deliberate slowness, her peripheral vision attuned to any flicker of change. She'd chosen the book on a whim, something simple, something her niece loved. But now, as she narrated Wilbur's fear of slaughter and Charlotte's quiet resolve, it felt oddly fitting. Cinder, too, was a creature teetering on an edge. his fate hinging on a thread no one could see. At the 45-minute mark, she paused to sip from a water bottle, her throat dry from the unbroken monologue. As she capped it, she risked a glance, subtle, fleeting, and froze. Cinder's head had lifted just an inch, his dark eyes no longer fixed on the floor but tracking her hands. It wasn't much, a spark, not a flame, but it was the first time he'd acknowledged her. Emboldened, Tara resumed reading, keeping her movements minimal. Fern sat quietly, watching the miracle unfold. She continued, her voice steady despite the quickening of her pulse. She read for another 15 minutes, finishing a chapter, then closed the book and sat in silence, pretending to study her nails. The corridor was still, save for the occasional shuffle of a volunteer down the hall. When she finally stood, stretching her stiff legs, she caught it again. Cinder's gaze followed her, not with fear, but with a faint, wary curiosity. His body remained pressed to the wall, but his eyes, those glassy, haunted eyes, held hers for a heartbeat before darting away. It was the first crack in his armor, a whisper of connection that sent a jolt through her. She grabbed her bag and hurried to Sophia's office, breathless. "I need 48 more hours," she said, bursting in as Sophia sorted intake forms. He looked at me, actually looked. "There's something still in there." Sophia leaned back in her chair, skepticism warring with exhaustion. "Tara, we're past capacity. I've got 3 more surrenders coming in tomorrow, and no kennels." "Free." Tara stepped closer, her voice urgent. "I know, but this isn't nothing. He's been a ghost for weeks, and today he saw me. 1 more day. Please." Sophia pinched the bridge of her nose, the weight of the shelter's reality pressing down. She'd built her career on tough calls, on knowing when to let go, but Tara's plea tugged at the part of her that still believed in miracles. 48 hours, she relented, her tone grudging. "If he's not showing more by Saturday morning, we list him, that's it." Tara nodded, relief flooding her. "Thank you. I'll be here first thing." As Tara left, Sophia lingered in the office, staring at the euthanasia list. Cinder's name wasn't on it yet, but the red ink loomed like a guillotine. She thought of his hollow stare, the way he'd shrunk from every touch, and wondered if Tara was chasing shadows. But that glance, those eyes tracking Tara's movement, nagged at her, a flicker of doubt in her certainty. She didn't know it then, but the next day would bring more than doubt. Friday would usher in an unexpected visitor, a stranger whose presence would tilt Cinder's story in a direction no one could predict. The shelter's relentless grind continued, dogs barking, phones ringing, a volunteer mopping a spill. But beneath it all, a quiet shift had begun, one that would test the limits of hope in a place where it was often in short supply. Friday, August 23, 2024, dawned with a hazy sky over the Ventura County Animal Shelter, the morning sun filtering weakly through a layer of coastal fog. Inside, the air was thick with the usual clamor, dogs barking in staccato bursts, the metallic clang of kennel doors, the low hum of a vacuum as volunteers tidied the adoption wing. Cinder's kennel in the rehab section remained a pocket of stillness, his small, brindle form hunched in its familiar corner. The gauze on his neck had been swapped for a lighter bandage, and his coat showed faint signs of regrowth, but his eyes still carried that distant, glassy sheen. Tara Kim's breakthrough the previous day, a fleeting moment of eye contact, had brought him a reprieve, but the clock was ticking. Sofia Alvarez had granted 48 hours, and by Saturday morning, Cinder's fate would be sealed unless something changed. The staff moved with weary efficiency, their hope tempered by the reality of too many animals and too few miracles. Around 10 a.m., a woman stepped through the shelter's glass doors, her arms laden with a stack of folded towels and a bag of old blankets. Lena Ortiz, 35, was a speech therapist at a nearby elementary school. Her dark hair pulled into a loose ponytail, her jeans and faded t-shirt suggesting a casual day off. She approached the front desk, where volunteer Mia Lopez flashed her practiced smile. "Dropping off some donations," Lena said, setting the pile down with a soft thud. "My sister used to work here years back. Figured you could use these." Mia nodded, jotting a note on a clipboard. "We can always use more. Thanks." Supervisor Leo Navarro, a lanky man with a clipboard of his own, overheard from the hallway. "To appreciate it," he called, stepping closer. "Your sister's time would have been before the big remodel. Want a quick tour? We've upgraded a bit." Lena hesitated, glancing at her watch. She'd planned to run errands, not linger, but a flicker of nostalgia tugged at her. "Sure, I've got a few minutes." Leo led her through the adoption wing first, where puppies tumbled over each other in playpens and adult dogs pressed eager noses to kennel bars, tails wagging like metronomes. Lena smiled, offering soft hellos. "Hey, cutie! Look at you!" But none sparked more than passing fondness. The tour wound toward the rehab wing, a quieter, sadder space marked by a staff-only sign. "This is where we keep the medical cases and the tough ones," Leo explained, his voice dropping. "Not adoption ready yet." Lena peered down. The corridor curiosity piqued. "Mind if I take a look? My sister always talked about the ones who needed extra help." Leo paused, then shrugged. "Sure, just stay back from the doors. Some are still working through fear." They passed a dog recovering from mange, a pair of kittens gaining weight, a shepherd mix with a limp. Then they reached Cinder's kennel. Leo stopped, lowering his voice. "This guy's our toughest case. French Bulldog, about 2, found abandoned. Found a trailer. Been here almost 3 weeks, won't come out of that corner. We're hoping a rescue takes him, but—" He trailed off, shaking his head. Lena stepped closer, peering into the dim kennel. Cinder was a huddled shadow, his brindle coat blending with the concrete, his eyes barely visible but fixed warily on them. Something about him, the stillness, the way he seemed to shrink, caught her, a pang she couldn't name. "What's his story?" she asked. Leo sighed. "Not much to tell. Owner ditched him months ago. Extreme neglect, maybe worse. He's not aggressive, just shut down. Doesn't trust anyone." Lena stood there, silent, watching the trembling. "Dog?" Then, without a word, she sank to the floor, sitting cross-legged about 6 feet from the kennel, her back against the opposite wall, just as Tara had done the day before, though she didn't know it. Leo blinked, surprised. "What are you doing?" Lena shrugged, her voice soft. "Not sure, just sitting with him, I guess. Giving him space, but staying close. Can I hang out for a bit?" Leo checked his watch, a faint frown creasing his brow. "I've got meds to run in 15, but I'll swing back. You okay here?" She nodded, her eyes never leaving Cinder. "Yeah, I'm good." Alone now, Lena settled in, pulling her phone from her pocket. She scrolled idly at first, checking emails, but her attention kept drifting to the kennel. Cinder hadn't moved, his body rigid, but his eyes followed her, subtle shifts tracking her hands, her slight adjustments on the hard floor. 10 minutes passed, then 15. Leo returned, his sneakers squeaking on the concrete. "Any change?" he whispered, crouching beside her. Lena tilted her head. "Not really, but he's watching me. Not running away." She pointed discreetly. Cinder's ears had twitched forward, a tiny signal amid his stillness. Leo raised an eyebrow. "Huh, that's more than we've seen in days. You want to come back tomorrow?" Lena brushed off her jeans as she stood, glancing at Cinder one last time. "Yeah, I think I will." As she gathered her bag, Cinder shifted, just a fraction, his weight easing off the wall, his head tilting slightly to follow her departure. It wasn't a leap, not even a step, but it was something. A thread of curiosity where there'd been only fear. Lena couldn't explain why she felt drawn to him, why this silent, broken dog had lodged in her mind. Maybe it was the echo of her sister's stories, the ones about the lost causes who turned out not to be lost at all. Or maybe it was something deeper, a recognition she couldn't yet voice. She drove home that afternoon, the shelter fading in her rear view, but Cinder's eyes stayed with her, a quiet pull she couldn't shake. Back at the shelter, Tara arrived later that day, eager to build on her own progress. Leo filled her in, recounting Lena's visit with a mix of surprise and cautious hope. She just sat there, same as you, and he watched her leave. 2 of you in 2 days, that's not a fluke, right? Tara's face lit up, her notebook already open. No, it's not. He's responding even if it's small. I'll try again tomorrow, but if she's coming back, maybe we've got a shot. Sophia, overhearing as she passed by, paused. Who's this woman? She asked. Just a drop-in, Leo said, but she's hooked on him. Sophia's lips pressed into a thin line, doubt wrestling with the faint stir of possibility. Keep me posted, she said, moving on. None of them knew it yet, but Lena's return would spark more than a glimmer. It would set the stage for a bond that defied every expectation they'd built around Cinder's shattered world. Saturday, August 24th, 2024, broke over the Ventura County Animal Shelter with a crisp morning breeze, a rare relief from the late summer heat. The shelter hummed with its usual urgency, volunteers hustling through feeding rounds, dogs barking in a jagged symphony, but in the rehab wing, a quiet anticipation simmered. Cinder, the French Bulldog who'd spent weeks as a trembling shadow, had shown flickers of life, first with Tara Kim's patient reading, then with Lena Ortiz's unexpected presence. Today was the deadline Sofia Alvarez had set. Either Cinder proved he could connect, or his name joined the euthanasia list. The staff felt the weight, a mix of hope and dread threading through their hurried steps. Lena arrived just after opening, her arms empty this time, but her resolve firm. She carried a folding camp chair, a thermos of tea and a small Bluetooth speaker, tools she used with her shyest students, now repurposed for a dog she couldn't stop thinking about. Tara met her at the front desk, her eyes bright with cautious excitement. "You're back," Tara said, almost a question. Lena smiled faintly. "Couldn't stay away. He got under my skin yesterday." Tara led her to Cinder's kennel, briefing her on the way. "He watched you leave, same as he did with me. It's small, but it's something. Just keep doing what you did. No pressure, just be there." Lena nodded, setting up her chair 6 feet from the kennel, angling it slightly, to avoid staring directly at Cinder. She turned on the speaker, soft violin music drifting out, and settled in, sipping her tea. Cinder was in his corner, as always, his brindle coat catching the light through a high window. But his ears twitched at Lena's arrival. A subtle shift, Tara noted with a quick scribble in her notebook. For the first hour, Lena simply existed, reading a magazine aloud in a calm, lilting voice, pausing to comment on the weather or her day. "Supposed to cool off next week," she murmured, flipping a page. "Might take a walk by the pier." She didn't look at him, didn't push, just let her presence settle like a gentle tide. Around 11 a.m., Tara checked in, peering discreetly from the corridor's end. Cinder had edged forward, an inch, maybe 2, his head resting on his paws, instead of pressed to the wall. "That's new," Tara whispered to herself, hope flickering. By noon, Lena switched tactics, pulling a bag of treats from her pocket, soft chicken bits she'd grabbed on impulse. She tossed one lightly toward the kennel door, letting it land with a faint tap. Cinder's nose twitched, his eyes locking on it, but he didn't move. She waited, then tossed another, closer this time. After 10 minutes, he shifted, stretching, his stubby legs and inching toward the second treat. He sniffed it, hesitated, then ate, quick, cautious, retreating immediately. Lena's heart leapt, but she kept her voice steady, reading on about a recipe for lemon cake. Tara returned with Sophia in tow, both pausing at the sight. "He's never done that for me," Tara said, awed. Sophia's skepticism softened. "Keep going," she told Lena. "You've got him listening." The watershed moment came at 2 p.m. Lena had been silent for a while, sipping her tea when she sensed movement. Glancing up with careful peripheral vision, she saw Cinder standing at the kennel's front, his flat face pressed to the bars, watching her with an intensity that wasn't fear. She set her thermos down slowly, reached for a treat, and held it out, not tossing but offering. Cinder froze, then stepped closer, his nose stretching through the bars. His tongue darted out, snatching the treat from her fingers, and he didn't retreat. Lena's breath caught, tears pricking her eyes. Tara, watching from the hall, whispered, "That's it. He's in." Then came the clue. Lena wore a jacket. From a morning visit with a student's family, a veteran named Marcus Vega, who'd lost a French Bulldog in a car accident 2 years prior. Cinder sniffed her sleeve obsessively, his stubby tail twitching, a first. On a hunch, Lena called. Marcus, describing Cinder. Brindle's scar on his left hip. Marcus asked, voice trembling. That's my Milo. An hour later, Marcus arrived in a wheelchair, his VA social worker at his side. Tara moved Cinder to a quiet meet-and-greet room, and Lena wheeled Marcus in. Milo, here, Marcus said, his tone a mix of command and longing. Cinder's reaction was electric. He bolted across the room, leaping into Marcus's lap, whining and licking his face. Marcus buried his hands in Cinder's fur, sobbing, I thought I'd lost you. The reunion unraveled a mystery. Milo, injured in the crash, had escaped, ending up stray until his owner's move and abandonment. Somehow, he'd recognized Marcus's scent on Lena, bridging the gap. Sophia waived all fees, transferring ownership. Through a vet's program, Lena fostered them, her speech therapy skills aiding Marcus's recovery, Milo nudging him through exercises with a soldier's loyalty. Months later, Marcus walked with a cane, Milo trotting beside him, his coat glossy, his fear gone. Lena, now a fixture in their lives, joined them for evening strolls by the pier, her rental swapped for a pet-friendly place. The shelter celebrated their story, a front-page feature sparking donations and adoptions. Milo, once a ghost, became a mascot, visiting with Marcus and Lena to comfort other rescues. One spring day, under blooming jacarandas, Marcus proposed to Lena, Milo carrying the ring on his collar. She said yes, laughing as Milo barked approval. From a cornered shadow to a family's heart, Cinder, Milo, proved that love, lost and found, could heal even the deepest wounds, weaving 3 broken souls into a whole.